عليكم مرحبا بكم في هذه الندوة ما بيني وبين سميرة دحماني. غادي تكون بالإنجليزية، غادي دوكا نبدا بالإنجليزية وعندكم الترجمة. My name is Hassnae Bouazza. معايا with me is Samira Dahmani, Dutch Moroccan Dutch Dutchies, however you want to call it. We are here. Jamal Ouariachi was supposed to be with us, but unfortunately he had to cancel. And so Samira and I will take the honors, and we will be talking about how new voices or bicultural voices are shaping the narrative in the Netherlands and the West in general. So new voices or voices that were there but that are now claiming their space and really influencing the debate and the perspective. And the reason I invited Samira is because we worked together on a 3-part documentary series about the Rif, which is called Stories from the Rif. And what we try to do is present new stories, stories that were not known to the general public, and to present more stories from women as well, because the Rif was traditionally represented by men, and the women are equally important, if not more important. We thought it was time to give them their space, give them give them a platform, and to share their stories, and of course as men as well. But we thought it important to take a dive into the Rif and to share the lives of the people who live there, and who can share more about their history, their culture, the identity, the language, and the emancipation as well. And I asked Samira because she has a couscous bar in Amsterdam, and that's her way as well of sharing something more about her identity, right, Samira?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yes.
So maybe you can tell more about what you do and why you do it.
So 8 years ago, we started in Amsterdam a couscous bar because I wanted to do something that was close to my heritage. Because I think if you do something that's a part of you, it can be very successful. So when we starting with the couscous bar, we were thinking like, how can we create an authentic place for people to introduce actually couscous. Okay. So from there on, we were thinking like our mothers can cook, and we can also tell their story. So so that's how we started the couscous bar.
Yeah. Because in sharing your food and the couscous, in working with your mothers, you're sharing a part of your story as well.
Yes.
To the Dutch public.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Dutch people love it, right?
Yeah, they love couscous. They don't like in Holland. We don't have like a big culture of Moroccan restaurants, so it's sometimes like really a challenge to introduce Moroccan food to Dutch people. But when they eat it, they love it. Yeah.
Because sharing one's food is also sharing one's story, and what you would like is to have a bigger cultural and culinary Moroccan scene in the Netherlands.
Yes, yeah? I would love to.
Yeah.
Yes.
And do you think that if people will like your couscous, they will be prepared to know more about your background and your heritage?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one way of sharing stories, because there's just the two of us, and I will be sharing as well. So I'll be taking Jamal's place as well a bit, and talking more about the debate in Holland and the changing perspective. And one way of changing the perspective, of course, is to make a documentary series, but it is also by writing columns and op-eds and articles in the Dutch press, magazines, diving into the debate and trying to present different perspectives. And what is very topical now in Netherlands, there are two subjects that are very important. One is since yesterday evening, we have a far-right government in Holland, which will have a big impact not only on the bicultural communities, but on everybody. And the second subject is, of course, Palestine. And if we talk about Palestine, what we see is there is, not just in Holland, but in the Western world, a really significant change of perspective. Traditionally, the Western world is very much pro-Israel. There's a big loyalty. But what we're witnessing now in Holland and abroad is a very strong wave of Palestine solidarity, and the influence of the bicultural voices is really important. And what we also see is that there is a very strong cooperation between the bicultural voices and the progressive white voices, and also the millennials and Gen Z. Very, very important is that there is that they are really imposing their opinions and their stance, and that they're doing so with a passion that I can't find in me. Samira can't find in her. You won't find us on the streets, in an encampment and throwing stones or whatever. I mean, I do it with my words. I write and I try to, convince people that there are different perspectives and there are different positions possible. And Samira does it with a very soft touch by cooking and presenting, winning people over with the Moroccan tastes and flavors. And I think what you see is that we're all strengthening each other. In the past, it was quite lonely to be a bicultural progressive voice standing up for Palestine. And what we see now is we're stronger and we're everywhere and we're supporting each other in different ways. And each and every one does his or her or their bit. And we see that it's influential. The public opinion is changing thanks to these voices that are loud, that are self-confident. But also, I have to say, unfortunately, also because of the dire and horrible images that we see coming from Palestine. So that's one thing. There is, however, a downside to us being prominent and self-confident and really claiming our space, is that the more conservative side of society becomes even more conservative. And they reject the changes. They are afraid of the changes. And you get this, they call it polarization. You get this big rift between the progressives and the youngsters and the more conservative bloc. And at this point, I think if I put it in a very simple terms, the progressive bloc is winning, the streets, and the conservative bloc is winning parliament. So I'm not sure if we're winning. I'm afraid we're on the losing side, but we're continuing and we're battling and we're using our words and we're using our voices. And these are very interesting times. They're very scary times, very worrisome times, because, democracy is threatened. Civilization is threatened, but it also, but we have a lot to lose. So we don't have the choice not to do anything or not to say anything. And that makes it interesting times where, people are there on the streets, in the media, in the pages of the newspapers. And there's this fierce and fiery debate going on. And in the midst of all that, we're just trying to, find the ways to get across our position and message. And Samira is very much apolitical, I have to say.
Yes, I am.
do you think that these are? But you're apolitical, but you do follow everything, right?
I follow everything.
Yeah.
But I don't. I follow everything, but I don't think like I'm in the position to share like on social media my own opinion.
Yeah.
I think it has also to do with that. Maybe I'm scared.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm scared. That's maybe the biggest reason to be judged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you do get judged if you're a participant. You get judged, especially as a bicultural woman.
Yeah, I think that's my fear.
Yeah.
And that's maybe the reason that I never talk about politics or religion or anything that's very sensitive.
Yeah, yeah. And so you choose to reach people by the work that you do and the food that you make.
Yeah, by food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by introducing moms, traditional Moroccan moms that used to be completely invisible in the public debate. You've introduced them to your kitchen, to your couscous bar, and in that way also to society.
Yeah, actually they are our most important tool. So our mothers are actually for the couscous bar, they are the basic of the concept. And we give them the platform, but also, the platform, but also that they can shine, that they can tell their story and without being judged like they are stupid or not educated or anything else. So they have and when they are in the couscous bar or being filmed or having interviews, they are so clever and they are so happy. Yeah.
Because that's also an element in Dutch media. Moroccan women or Turkish women, bicultural women, especially our mother's generations and our father's generation, they were always anonymous, filmed from behind, always in the context of problems or a threat or a fear. They were never portrayed from, visibly with a face, with a voice, with a name, with a history, with dreams and hopes and loves. And that also is changing. And what you do is a way of presenting, these are our women and they're smart. They have something to offer.
Yeah, they have a lot to offer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to tell you something about me working with Samira. I think she knows what I'm going to tell. I first approached Samira for our documentary series if she wanted to cooperate. And she wanted to, but then she was, hesitant. And how I convinced Samira was by convincing her mother. So I went to her mother. I almost took with me qalb sukkar, to ask for her hand. And
she did.
Yeah. And I wooed her mother into liking me and, giving me permission to take her daughter with me to the Rif. And she agreed. So those mothers, I like that. Your mother is a wonderful woman, a very confident woman as well. Yeah. And it's important. It's just not just nice to give them, the recognition that they have, but it's also important because I think that goes for you as well. But I wouldn't be here or anywhere without my mother, and of course my father as well. But my mother was very significant, and I think that goes for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. My mother is very important in everything that I actually do.
Yeah.
And every choice I make. So she's the rock. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems very obvious. Of course it is. But when you live in a different country that doesn't really see you, then those elements are really very important to emphasize and to show and to highlight and to humanize people. I think dehumanization is a very big issue everywhere, and especially currently. But it's in essence, that's what I know you do with your work. And it's something that I do, is to humanize people. There's this whole way of thinking in terms of animosity, the clash between civilizations and the Western world and the Eastern world. And I think that the way that the West perceives the Arab world is now more than ever clear, in that the way when, even when the suffering is so clear as what we see every day, it's still very important for large parts of the Western world to recognize that suffering and to recognize the humanity of the other, and to accept that human rights and humanity are, something that we all share, and that's something that we should be for everybody. And seeing, I don't know, I know you don't talk politics, but I find it very difficult to see all the suffering that is going on, and to realize that a lot of people, especially in politics, because the popular voice differs from the political voice in the Western world. There's a clear difference. But what I find difficult is that people would see the suffering of innocent children, innocent women, innocent men, and they can shrug their shoulders, and they can just continue with whatever it is, and they can just decide that, their human rights are more important than other people's human rights. And I noticed that that's something that is causing a lot of frustration among people, among bicultural communities, among young people, among progressives. And the simple, clear fact that we're all human beings, and that we're all deserving of protection and acknowledgement of our humanity and our vulnerability. But you're pretty good at just, blocking that off, having your own opinion, of course, and continuing with, the soft way of your soft approach.
Yeah, it is difficult to block everything away. And a lot of times I don't recognize myself in the news or something else. But I do choose to present a piece of the Moroccan culture by our food.
Yeah.
Through our mothers.
Yeah. And it's a soft approach that works.
Yeah. I think it works, and I think it needs to be there as a part of the whole thing.
Yeah. You need the whole package. You can't just only cook or only write or only go in camp and protest. You need everything. It's a whole package.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, we're talking here and you're present, but you're very welcome to join us, if you have any questions or remarks. So you need the soft approach, you need the tough approach, the street approach, and you need the writing, which is what I do, because I don't see myself going into a tent, getting all dirty, fighting with the police, which is going on in many parts of the cities in Holland and in other countries. So I think that I think that those are the most important developments with regards to bicultural voices. And what is very important is that traditional media are not, much better. I can hear myself now, is that traditional media are not, or the mainstream media, as they're called, are not the only platforms available for people. And what you see is that internet, social media, and alternative platforms offer alternative perspectives, stories, writers, names, and that has been very instrumental as well in shifting a perspective and in changing and in offering other stories that challenge the main narrative of the traditional media that were, of course, traditionally also very strong and very dominant. So social media is, or internet has strengthened and emboldened the far right. And, they find each other online. It's almost a global community, and people find each other online, but the politicians find each other as well. So you have Orban, Putin, Wilders, Trump, Baudet, they're all, Le Pen, they bond, and they get stronger and stronger. And that's something that the progressives could also do. What we see is that the progressives are there. They're present in the media and in the other types of media online, but you don't see that big a bond between the progressives as the far right does. And I would wish for the progressives to bond more as well, because it would make them much stronger, and it would enable them to have a better response to the damaging influence of the far right. So that's something that's something that we still have to work on. I mean, I'm not in politics, so I don't have to work on that. But politicians, I would wish for politicians, progressive politicians, to be much more united and bold as the far right is. Because what you see is the far right is bold, and they're unapologetic. They say the most horrible things. They will never apologize for it. And the progressive politicians, they're always a bit squeamish, and they're always, trying to be holier than thou. And it doesn't work. We have seen that it doesn't work. It doesn't work to be, polite when you're opposed to a very brutal and aggressive counterpart. So, and once again, I do invite you to join us, because, we're talking, but we're also here to talk to you as well, of course. Samira, do you notice that there's much more activity in your field of other voices, other cultures, claiming their space in society or in the cultural or gastronomic field?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, there are a lot of examples that we have in Amsterdam who claim their part, but I do think we need more voices and more examples. So yeah, hopefully in the future there will be more examples.
Yeah, because the street where your couscous bar is located, the very first couscous bar, is called the Java-straat. Called after the Java, the island, Indonesian island, and it's a very multicultural street with many, many multicultural entrepreneurs like yourself.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
you have like different cultures and food specialties, and and that's nice. It's it is one of the last streets in Amsterdam that has such a big reach of kitchens and cultures, and
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So other parts of Amsterdam are
not as diverse.
No.
Because that's the strength of the Java-straat, the whole diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
but you see also it's a challenge because they try to raise rents and stuff like that, and it makes it more and more difficult for entrepreneurs to open a small shop and sell their stuff. So you do see they want to create like a pipe kind of environment, and by that I mean like a white society.
Yeah, hipster white.
Yeah.
But because they are taking over all this. All the neighborhoods. Yeah. So the authentic,
Yeah, because when you say authentic, a lot of people want to have it cheap.
Yeah.
Like then it's cheap, and if the rents are very high, you cannot sell cheap, authentic food.
Yeah. But that's an important point, I think, that you make, is that when it comes to non-white entrepreneurs, people want it cheap, as if it's worth less.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's something that you have to change as well, right?
Yeah.
You have to raise them.
Yeah. But with the couscous bar, we don't show up for cheap things. We really want to make money because we value ourselves.
Yeah.
But it is hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
And if it's something else, then they want to pay for it. But if it's couscous, Moroccan or Indian food, or Syrian food, then or Turkish food, then it needs to be cheap and
But it says something. I think it also says something about how people are viewed and how the communities are viewed is as lesser.
Yeah.
And you see that in the debate as well. Is if somebody like me writes something critical, I'm told to go back to my country, which I mean, I'm not going to do that, and nobody's going to do that.
No.
But there's still this hierarchy, and a lot of people still believe that if you're not originally from Holland, whatever that means, because you were born in Amsterdam, so you're a true Amsterdammer, is that they feel that you have less of a voice and less of a right to engage in the debate. And so that also is projected on the products that people buy. When they see it's Moroccan or Turkish or whatever, then they feel that they have a right to a lesser price.
Yeah.
So the whole, battle, if I may call it battle, to be on the exact level as white Dutch people is everywhere. Whether you're an entrepreneur who sells food, or whether you're writing articles, or you're a journalist, or
I think so.
Yeah.
We're not equal yet.
No.
Yeah.
And I think, but what you do also see is, if I take the Dutch Moroccan community as an example, is what I notice is many people have outstanding positions and careers. They have very, very good positions in everywhere. So in government positions, in economic enterprises. So what you see is that
in the media,
like everywhere, we're everywhere, which is like the biggest nightmare for white, conservatives. But we're everywhere, and we have very, very big, high positions. And I think that the general public hasn't caught up on that. They still think that we're, cleaning toilets and making cheap food and selling vegetables.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we've conquered our positions, and I kind of am looking forward to the moment, to the great awakening, that they realize, whoa.
Like, what happened?
Yeah. So there's a really big, big difference between the reality of, for example, the Moroccan Dutch community, which is doing extremely well, and the fantasy reality of the far right and the conservatives, who are left behind. They're left behind.
Yeah, they're blind for us, actually.
Yeah.
They don't see what's happening.
And there's a whole change in society that they're not aware of. Yes, please. Maybe there's a mic for the lady. So, there's a mic. Yeah. There's a question from the audience.
First of all, hello, and thank you for this enriching conversation. My question is, first of all, I would like to talk about this polarization between the conservatives and the progressive bloc. And as a young person myself, I noticed that we young people mostly would like to go through change because we are used to it. We are more open to going along or aligning with change, since there are many moments in our lifetime where we were used to it. For example, COVID-19 is a prime example. And in the other hand, we see that the older generation are mostly conservative or afraid of change, and I'm wondering, what do you think is the reason behind such status quo, such a wish to maintain the status quo? Is it because they are afraid of change, or they are afraid of losing themselves in this change? Thank you.
Yeah, shall I answer, and then, or do you want to go ahead and then we can? Yeah, sure.
Because my question is in the same vein, so yeah. Well, first, I want to thank the panelists for this beautiful meeting. So I truly agree with you when you say that we can witness a sort of growing importance or dominance of the far right wing of the political party. And the struggle between the progressive and the battle between the progressive and conservative party. You can see that with the winning election in the Netherlands and with the growing disruption of politics. My question is concerning the introduction of the our culture in the Netherlands. How is it seen by the media in this context? Is it seen as a threat of their own culture, or is it seen as a I don't know, but is it like do we witness an end of globalization and a growing measures of protectionism, especially in this context of the growing of the far right parties? Thanks.
So, Shall I do the first question? Yeah, so that was about the progressive versus the conservatives. What I notice is when it comes to the conservatives, the conservatives. Yeah, it's very loud. I'm so sorry. I'll think about it. Is people are afraid to give up or to lose their privileges. And if I can give you a very simple example is there is on the progressive side more attention to diversity and inclusion. And many white people who profited from the, simple norm that the simple fact that they were the norm. So if you're a white male, you do not have any barriers. You do not have to prove yourself because you're the norm. The moment that, and I mean, when there are, vacancies, so you're also, for years and decades and hundreds of years, white men were favored over women, over bicultural people, and definitely bicultural women. Now there is a more awareness that there's, women are an important part, and bicultural people should also be represented. And white people, and especially white men, feel that that is something against them. So they have to share the pie. And they don't want to share the pie because they feel that that is oppression. They feel that they are discriminated against because other people are given a chance as well. So that's what's at stake for them. They feel that equality means oppression to them and exclusion. Whereas people with a bicultural background don't know better that they have to work harder and have to prove themselves more and more than anybody else. So that's what, it plays a very big part. The second question, I think you should begin with that.
If I can remember your question the right way, I think it has two sides. So when it helps them, like if it's trendy and you can use the Moroccan culture or food or language, then they use it. But the other side, I think also they think it's intimidating, and then they how can I say it properly, they don't want nothing to do with it. So if it's used by exotic context, it's lovely. Otherwise they don't want it.
Yeah, and I think that the Dutch public is very welcoming of different flavors and foods and cuisines. They love it, and they love to integrate when it comes to food. They love to integrate on the plate. It's the easiest integration. They love their couscous. But you have to know your place. So and that, there's...
And I think also with the new generation, they also use like Moroccan words, like ewa or ruina and taz. Exactly. So you do see a change.
It's very funny that you're right. Moroccan words have entered the realm and have entered the discussion. And it's very funny to see really white Dutch boys using, these Moroccan words. Hifla.
At first I was confused, like, what is happening here? But it is nice.
It's nice because, there's this mixture and it's fun and it's, natural. It's not forced. And, so there's a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of activity going on. Any more questions? Yes, sir. Mike.
Je vais parler en français.
Is Frans, ik kan het ook voor je vertalen hoor. Wat je
Je peux parler. J'ai lu plusieurs romanciers néerlandais d'origine marocaine, des écrivains tout à fait remarquables, que j'ai accueillis avec grand plaisir en 2005 dans mon dictionnaire des écrivains marocains. Et je voudrais savoir quel est le retentissement de leurs œuvres, à la fois chez les Néerlandais et chez les Néerlandais d'origine marocaine.
Merci pour votre question, messieurs. So I'm going to be doing this in English. Yeah. The influence is big, and it's good because they have introduced different stories, different perspectives, different language as well. And they have been also very successful commercially in the Netherlands. And they have won big literary awards. So I think the influence of Dutch Moroccan writers are the biggest bicultural group in the Netherlands. I don't think there's any other community in Holland that has more writers. Not the Turkish, not the Surinamese, not the.
No.
Well, you have the Indonesian writers as well, but they're, they have a different history in the Netherlands. But from the communities that came to the Netherlands in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the Dutch Moroccan writers are the most successful, that have been around the longest, and I think the influence has been very important. And I mean, the fact that you wrote a book about them says it all. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Non, moi je voulais un peu continuer sur la question précisément. Il y a eu une première génération d'écrivains marocains des Pays-Bas, avec Mustafa Stito, avec Abdelkader Ben Ali, avec Hassnae Bouazza, et qui ont connu un très beau succès, effectivement, dans les années 90, qui ont remporté des grands prix, qui ont connu un succès critique très important. Ensuite, dans les années 2000, au début des années 2000, il y a eu votre génération, toi-même, Hassnae, Nadia Boras, Saïd Hajji, Khalid Mourir, etc. Aujourd'hui, est-ce qu'il y a du renouvellement de jeunes de la nouvelle génération? Et est-ce que, parce que je le sais, il y a des questions identitaires assez importantes qui se posent au niveau de cette littérature-là, qui est très ancrée localement, c'est-à-dire aux Pays-Bas, mais qui reste pour pratiquement tout ce qui se produit très attaché aussi au pays d'origine et au RIF en particulier. Est-ce que c'est quelque chose qui se renouvelle aujourd'hui? Et puisqu'on parle de perspective en évolution, effectivement, en quoi le récit est-il en train d'être transformé? Ça va?
Very good question. Yeah. I don't know them. So very good question. You?
There are much less writers than 90s, true, much less. But what I do notice, and maybe you can share some more about that, is that there is a reawakening of the Riffian identity. So there's an emancipation going on the Dutch Moroccan Riffi Amazigh community that is very self-confident as well, and that is very much aware of their cultural identity, of the history of their background, and of the north of Morocco. And I think that's something that you learn to appreciate as well.
Yeah, it took time before I appreciate my Reef roots, but now I love them. But you do see, like it's the Reef community is very big in Holland. Like the I think the biggest in Europe. Yeah. So, but they don't do the Reef questions with the Dutch lifestyle and stuff like that. They are focused more on what happened in the past, and So
the whole decolonization discourse, that's what they talk about as well. So more history and more identity and more taking up the space and rewriting the history along their terms. So that's what you have going on. But there aren't many young writers. You do have more and more writers who write articles. You're more journalists, opinion articles, but books, literature, maybe it'll come back again. I mean, we shouldn't forget you know, there's just a few people who can live off writing in Holland, so you don't sell that many books. It's a poor, you know. So yeah, I have to work as well. But it is interesting. It's true. The 90s were the golden age of Dutch Moroccan literature, and then we had in the 2000s. But now, not so much.
C'est bon? Donc, je reviens au couscous bar. Je reviens au cas de Hassnae et je constate que vous rompez avec le stéréotype de la jeune d'origine marocaine. Parce que pour le Hollandais, une jeune de votre âge est d'abord une femme voilée, peu éduquée et à votre âge déjà mariée. Alors, l'entrepreneuriat ethnique, le couscous dari, moi je pense que c'est une avancée par rapport à ce stéréotype, parce qu'aux Pays-Bas, on pense toujours à ce stéréotype de la femme, jeune marocain. Alors, est-ce qu'il y a beaucoup de Hassnae Bouazza aux Pays-Bas? Est-ce que cet entrepreneuriat ethnique connaît un développement aux Pays-Bas?
D'abord, c'est moi Hassnae. Voilà Samira. Moi, je fais pas le couscous bar.
So what we try to do with the interior to make it very urban and from this time. So if you see couscous bar, it's not like a stereotype, but we have also open kitchens. So our mothers being seen. So they are not just only like behind closed doors. Yeah, that's how we try not to make it a typical stereotype and give them their power, because cooking is not like it's not something that's how do you say it in English? It is not yeah, it is not stereotype.
It's not stereotype, and it's very valuable. And I don't see how our couscous heritage could be stereotypical if we present it and we and what she does, like she said, in an urban way, and it's a very modern way, and we reclaim it. She reclaims it, and she works with it in her way, with her background, and with the respect that she has for it, and with the respect for the mothers that make it. So it's not stereotypical at all, I would argue. We redefine. Maintenant je comprends. Definitely. Amen. I mean, definitely. So sorry. So definitely she does. Yeah. So let's start again. Let's pretend this never happened, and we start again.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully they understand it.
This was just, lost in translation, lost in my translation as well. And that's why we have the professionals. But that's what we're constantly doing, right? In writing, in cooking, in making documentaries, is defying the stereotypes and telling stories and from our perspective of the way that we see it, and not from, you know, the Orientalist view, and not from, you know, they're backwards and look at what that, you know, veiled woman can do. So yeah, we do that every day on a daily basis. It's constantly. Yeah. So the lady in the back.
So I would like to go back to the conversation about books and literature, and especially with the newer generation. I feel like while literature still plays a major role in impacting and influencing representativeness and cultural diversity, I feel like social media currently has taken a bigger toll, especially because of the young generation's interest in social media and the fact that they don't express themselves in books and literature anymore, but mostly through comments and videos and through social media in general. And I'm sure you already know that this is at the same time a good and a bad thing. It is good because it impacts the narratives. It changes the public opinion, especially of the people who are not educated about the subjects before, and it also influences the narratives. But I'm wondering, since you experienced it firsthand in concrete realities, what do you think are the bad impacts of social media's interest in such subjects? Thank you.
The good thing is, and that's something that we see, I'm not a TikTok person. I'm ancient history. I don't do TikTok. But what we see is that the youngsters on TikTok are not burdened by the history, the white, you know, European history. And what you see is that there is a huge, quote unquote, pro-Palestine voice in TikTok, which is extremely influential and which has led, you know, the United States wanting to ban TikTok. Hooray for free speech and democracy, right? So that's a good thing, is the new voices, the new impulses, the new perspectives that defy, you know, the standard story and narrative. The downside is people don't have the patience to go and read a whole article, let alone a book. They want something in 10 seconds or 30 seconds, and they want to understand the world. That's the downside, is people don't, our documentary is 3 times 50 minutes. Nobody has time for that. The younger generations, they're like, what? That's a lifetime. So that's a pity. And I welcome the change and I welcome the different perspective, but I would love for people to also find the time for more depth and more complex issues, and to just read a whole article, to really learn more about a subject, and not just, in some catchphrases. That's that. Would you like to?
I agree. I agree.
Okay. Yes, please.
Yes, I would like to come back to what you previously said. The fact that the Dutch are starting using some Moroccan words in their language. Well, I know for sure that if I do that in some countries, like in France, and if I start speaking if I go in the street and start speaking French and I use some Moroccan words, I will be categorized in a certain way. I will be categorized as someone who is not integrated in their own culture, as someone who is trying to impose his own culture, his own language. The far right parties are calling that the great replacement, or le grand remplacement, when people try to impose. Is it like that what they go? Impose their culture? Is it do the Dutch think the same way in this regard?
I think in the past it was maybe like that, but now it's like a trend. So it's like really a trend. If you want to be in the youngster community, you need to speak some Moroccan words in between. So yeah, that's my opinion.
And there's a difference between youngsters and politics, right? Because politicians in Holland are also talking about le grand remplacement, the great replacement. It's everywhere. But that's perhaps the plus side of many youngsters don't giving a damn about politics, and what they say is that, you know, they have their own rules of conduct and their own styles and their own trends. And so there is a big rift between politics and the way that they speak and youngsters on the streets and amongst each other. Yeah.
Samira and Hassnae, thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. My question is actually related to politics, now that you're talking about it. I've read yesterday that the three main right-wing parties agreed to form a government. What are your thoughts on this? Do you feel that new stories and new narratives will emerge, or other narratives will be more repressed because of this formation? What are your sentiments about this news?
Yeah.
To be honest, it frightens me. So yeah, I don't know what's coming, but I don't like this. And yeah, it's a heavy weight.
It's bad news. I think full stop. It's very worrisome. They agreed yesterday. We don't know who the prime minister will be yet, but it's bad news. And I think what you see on social media, on Twitter, I still say Twitter. I don't use X. I mean, you know, billionaire moron who, you know, wants to decide how we call things. It's Twitter. And what you see on Twitter is the far right is celebrating. And they're hoping for some deportations. They're hoping for, dominance. And what they don't realize is there's big hatred for the left, but they don't realize that many of the privileges that we have in the country, like unemployment benefit, a 38-hour work week, a health insurance, are things that the left gave us. And I say us. I'm part of the us. And they don't accept me as part of the us, but I'm damn well right part of the us. Samira's part of the us. And so they're rejoicing. They want to cut budgets for the Dutch public television with 100 million, which is extremely lot, because that's a threat to free speech and free press, which is ominous. It's serious. One of the first things they agreed upon. You have to know that a lot of the lower class voted for the far right. Not just the lower class, also the higher educated, white, privileged people. And one of the first things they just decided or agreed upon is tax cuts for the rich and the international, big international companies. So there you go. So what we will be seeing is problems will get worse and worse. They will not present any solutions. The polarization and the hatred will get worse. People feel emboldened by this political victory. And they feel that because they have won the elections, that they are right, which is a bit silly. Because, seats in parliament don't say anything about factuality of the position that you have. It will be harder. Racism has been legitimized. Discrimination, Islamophobia. Veiled women will have a harder life. And the polarization. And the polarization is something that is presented as something bad. But I think that you cannot polarize enough when it comes to these, sentiments. Racism should never be legitimized. Threats to democracy should never be legitimized. threats to, the social structure of a society should never be legitimized. And I worry. I worry for the democratic fiber of the country. I worry for the freedom of speech, because Wilders is somebody who he's a threat to free speech, because he does not respect his position as leader of the biggest party, which in a way is not a party because he's the sole member. It's an anti-democratic party, the PVV. And I don't think many people realize that. He's the sole member. He's an autocrat. And yesterday, journalists asked him, are you talking with your party about, possible members of the cabinet? And he said, I don't talk to the party, I decide. So that's who Wilders is. He's an autocrat. He's a friend of Orban. He's a friend of Putin. And people don't seem to care and don't seem to mind. And people even say, there should be more repression because they think repression will not touch them. But repression will touch all of us. And they don't realize that if we are targeted, in the end, they will be targeted as well. And you see it everywhere. You see it in America. You see it in Hungary. You see it in Russia. In America, I think the best example is, it starts with illegal migrants. And then they, go for the bicultural Americans. Then they go for the progressive Americans. Then they go for the LGBT community. And before you know it, they're knocking on your door. And now, the whole progressive white America is criminalized. So worrisome, definitely. But I also have some hope that hopefully they'll, can I say fuck up in 4 months? They'll just, make a mess of it. And hopefully people will see through that. And then we can go back to real politics. But there's also a danger, just like Trump, that they will really hurt the fabric of society and that they will really damage us, the country, free speech and everything. And then we will have to restart all over again. And I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah. Last question.
Je crois qu'il est urgent de prendre conscience que l'Europe file un mauvais coton. Hein, c'est un idiotisme. Hein, parce que l'accord entre la Grande-Bretagne et le Rwanda pour la déportation d'immigrés illégaux est un signal affreux, une régression affreuse. Et si deux pays européens et africains signe un tel accord, c'est un exemple désastreux et comme tous les exemples, il risque de se reproduire.
I agree completely. Of course, it's not just the UK and Rwanda, it's also the European Union giving millions and millions to autocrats like Sisi and what's his name in Tunis, just to keep people away. Europe has strayed away from the values of human rights and equality so far. It's frightening, it's frustrating, it's sickening. And I think the only thing we can do is keep on protesting, keep on writing, and hopefully people will wake up and smell the coffee and, find some humanity in their hearts. And hopefully, we can persuade people that this is not the way to go. But for that, it's not just us ordinary people doing, our little bits, but it's also up to the progressive politicians who really have to step up their game. And if I may, just the example of the UK, but also, with Rishi Sunak as a prime minister, But also in Holland, we have Dilan Yezilgöz, Turkish leader of the FIFD party. They're the biggest example that diversity does not mean that things will get better. Diversity is not just, somebody with a different cultural background or, a woman. Diversity is difference of opinions, different perspectives, and not just like, being a sock puppet, reproducing, what everybody else, the common, whatever everybody else in power is saying. Diversity is challenging power and not, going along with power and doing whatever they like and then, saying, well, look at us. We have, a bicultural prime minister. We have a female bicultural leader of the party. We don't want you. We want real diversity and real challenges and real inclusion. So, yeah, I think that's a very important thing to end upon. And then I'll give the last word to Samira.
I think we need to wrap up. I see over there. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much to both of you.